Michael Harrison, a 34-year-old resident of Asheville, North Carolina, disappeared on October 15, 2002, during a solo hiking expedition in the Blue Ridge Mountains section of the Appalachian Range. According to the initial police report filed by his sister Jennifer Harrison Webb, Michael had planned a 4-day trek through the Pisgah National Forest and was expected to return home by October 18th. Michael lived alone in a modest apartment on Merriman Avenue, where he had resided for the past 6 years. According to his landlord, Robert Mitchell, Michael was described as a reliable tenant who kept regular hours and maintained his property well. He was quiet, paid his rent on time, and never caused any problems, Mitchell told investigators during the initial missing person inquiry. The only unusual thing about him was how much time he spent outdoors. Every weekend he'd load up his truck with camping gear and head for the mountains. Jennifer Harrison Webb, who served as the primary contact during the investigation, described her brother as an experienced outdoorsman who had been hiking the Appalachian region since his college years at Western Carolina University. Michael knew those trails better than most park rangers, she stated in her testimony to Buncombe County Sheriff's Department. He started hiking seriously when he was 19 and had been doing solo trips for over a decade. He wasn't reckless or unprepared. According to family members, Michael followed strict safety protocols during his outdoor excursions. His neighbor, Dorothy Kemp, who lived in the adjacent apartment, reported that she regularly saw him organizing and checking his equipment in the parking lot before departing on trips. He would lay everything out on a tarp and go through it piece by piece, Kemp told investigators. I saw him do this routine probably 20 times over the years I lived next to him. The planned route for Michael's October expedition, as documented in the itinerary he left with his sister, included sections of the Mountains to Sea Trail and several unmarked paths that connected to remote camping areas. According to Park Service records, Michael had obtained the required permits for backcountry camping and had indicated his intention to establish campsites at 2 designated areas during his 4-day journey. Michael's preparation for this particular trip followed his established pattern. According to testimony from staff at Mountain Gear Outfitters on Tunnel Road, where he regularly purchased supplies. Store manager Patricia Reynolds confirmed that Michael visited the shop on October 12th, 3 days before his departure, to purchase additional batteries and water purification tablets. He was methodical about his gear, Reynolds stated. He knew exactly what he needed, and always asked about weather conditions for the areas he planned to visit. Weather reports from the National Weather Service indicated that conditions during the planned hiking period were expected to be favorable, with daytime temperatures ranging from 55 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit and clear skies forecast for the first 3 days. However, meteorologist David Chen noted that mountain weather conditions could change rapidly, particularly in the higher elevations Michael intended to traverse. On the morning of October 15th, according to the timeline established by investigators, Michael departed his apartment at approximately 6:30 a.m. Security footage from a gas station on Highway 191 shows him purchasing fuel and supplies at 7:15 a.m. The clerk who worked that shift, Maria Santos, later identified Michael from photographs shown by deputies, stating that he appeared in good spirits and mentioned looking forward to several days of hiking. The last confirmed sighting of Michael occurred at the Bent Creek Experimental Forest trailhead, where his vehicle, a 1998 Toyota Tacoma, was later found parked in the designated area. Park Ranger Thomas Bradley conducted his routine patrol of the parking area on October 16th and noted Michael's truck among several other vehicles belonging to hikers and campers. It wasn't unusual to see vehicles parked there for multiple days, Bradley explained to investigators. Serious hikers often leave their cars for extended periods while doing longer treks. Michael's hiking equipment, as described by his sister based on his usual packing list, included a 4-season tent, sleeping bag rated for temperatures down to 20 degrees, portable stove, 3 days' worth of food supplies, water filtration system, first aid kit, compass, topographical maps, and a basic radio for emergency communication. He typically carried an internal frame backpack that weighed approximately 45 pounds when fully loaded. According to Jennifer Harrison Webb's testimony, Michael maintained regular contact with family members, but was not expected to check in during his hiking trips unless an emergency occurred. That was just his way, she explained to investigators. He liked the solitude and disconnection from everyday life that the mountains provided. We had an understanding that he would call when he returned to his vehicle. The first indication that something was wrong came on the evening of October 18th, when Michael failed to appear at a previously scheduled dinner at his sister's home in West Asheville. According to Jennifer's statement, this was highly unusual behavior for her brother, who rarely canceled plans and was consistently punctual. Michael had never missed a family gathering without calling, she told deputies. When he didn't show up and didn't answer his phone, I knew immediately that something was wrong. Jennifer drove to Michael's apartment that evening and found no signs that he had returned from his trip. His mailbox was full, lights were off, and his truck was not in the parking lot. She contacted the apartment complex manager, who confirmed that Michael's unit appeared undisturbed and that his vehicle had not been seen since the previous week. Early on the morning of October 19th, Jennifer filed a missing person report with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department. Deputy Sandra Martinez, who took the initial report, noted that all available information suggested Michael had simply extended his hiking trip beyond the planned duration. However, given his established patterns of communication and reliability, the case was classified as a missing person investigation rather than a routine delayed return. The first phase of the search operation began on October 20th, when Deputy Martinez and Park Ranger Bradley drove to the Bent Creek trailhead and confirmed that Michael's Toyota Tacoma remained in the same parking position where it had been observed 4 days earlier. A preliminary examination of the vehicle revealed no signs of forced entry or disturbance. Michael's keys were not found in or around the truck. According to the incident report filed by Deputy Martinez, the truck's interior appeared normal, with no personal items visible and no indications of struggle or hasty departure. The vehicle was locked, and there were no obvious signs that Michael had returned to it after beginning his hike. Park regulations required that vehicles left for more than 7 days be reported to authorities, but Michael's truck had only been parked for 5 days when the search began. Jennifer Harrison Webb provided investigators with detailed information about Michael's hiking preferences and usual practices. According to her testimony, he typically preferred less crowded trails and often explored areas that were not heavily trafficked by casual hikers. He liked to find places where he wouldn't encounter other people for days at a time, she explained. That was part of what drew him to the more remote sections of the mountains. The search area initially focused on the trails that Michael had indicated in his planned itinerary, covering approximately 15 square miles of mountainous terrain. According to Search and Rescue Coordinator Lieutenant James Wong, the region presented significant challenges due to dense forest cover, steep terrain, and numerous unmarked paths that experienced hikers often use to access remote camping areas. On October 22nd, search teams discovered what appeared to be a recently used campsite, approximately 4 miles from the trailhead, in an area that corresponded to Michael's planned route. According to the report filed by Sergeant Lisa Park, who led the team that made the discovery, the site showed evidence of recent occupation, including a cleared fire ring and compressed ground where a tent had been pitched. However, no personal items or clear evidence linking the site to Michael were found. The investigation expanded to include interviews with other hikers and campers who had been in the area during the relevant time period. Park Service records indicated that 17 permits had been issued for backcountry camping in the region between October 14th and October 20th. Rangers contacted 12 of the permit holders, but none reported seeing Michael or anyone matching his description during their excursions. As the search entered its second week, the operation expanded to include volunteer groups and specialized search and rescue teams from neighboring counties. According to media reports from the Asheville Citizen-Times, more than 60 people participated in the coordinated search effort, which covered an area of approximately 30 square miles and included aerial reconnaissance using helicopter patrols. The case attracted attention from local media outlets, with Jennifer Harrison Webb making several public appeals for information about her brother's whereabouts. In a televised interview on WLOS-TV, she described Michael as an experienced hiker who would not have taken unnecessary risks or strayed from established safety practices. "My brother respected the mountains and understood the dangers," she stated. "He wasn't the type of person to make careless decisions or ignore weather warnings." Despite extensive search efforts involving ground teams, aerial reconnaissance, and specialized tracking units, no conclusive evidence of Michael's location or fate was discovered during the initial investigation period. The case remained active for 6 months, with periodic follow-up searches conducted when new information or potential sightings were reported to authorities. By April 2003, with no new leads or evidence discovered, the Michael Harrison missing person case was transferred to the Cold Case Division of the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, where it remained dormant for nearly a decade. The formal missing person investigation began at 8:30 a.m. on October 19, 2002, when Jennifer Harrison Webb arrived at the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department to file an official report. According to the initial incident documentation completed by Deputy Sandra Martinez, Jennifer provided a detailed timeline of her brother's planned hiking schedule and expressed concern that his failure to return or make contact was completely inconsistent with his established patterns of behavior. Deputy Martinez's report noted that Jennifer had attempted to reach Michael by phone 17 times between October 18th and the morning of October 19th, with all calls going directly to voicemail. She was clearly distressed but provided very organized information about her brother's habits and the specifics of his planned trip, Martinez documented. The family member appeared credible and genuinely concerned rather than simply impatient about a delayed return. The initial response protocol required a 48-hour waiting period before launching full search operations, but given Michael's reputation for reliability and the detailed information provided by his sister, Sergeant Lisa Park approved an immediate preliminary investigation. Park, who supervised the missing persons unit, later explained to local media that experienced hikers who failed to return as scheduled represented a higher priority than typical missing person cases involving adults. On the afternoon of October 19th, Park Ranger Thomas Bradley accompanied Deputy Martinez to the Bent Creek trailhead to examine Michael's abandoned vehicle and assess the situation. According to Bradley's incident report, the Toyota Tacoma showed no signs of forced entry, vandalism, or disturbance. The truck was properly parked within the designated area and appeared to have been there for several days based on the accumulation of fallen leaves on the windshield and hood. Bradley noted in his documentation that the vehicle's placement suggested Michael had arrived early in the morning, as it was positioned in a spot typically occupied by hikers who arrived before dawn to begin lengthy expeditions. Serious backpackers usually get on the trail by sunrise to maximize daylight hours, Bradley explained to investigators. The parking position and the fact that no gear was visible in the truck suggested he had loaded up and departed according to plan. The preliminary search of the immediate trailhead area revealed no obvious signs of distress or struggle. According to the joint report filed by Martinez and Bradley, they found no personal items, clothing, or equipment that could be linked to Michael along the first mile of the trail he had indicated in his planned route. Weather conditions during their initial search were clear, with good visibility and no precipitation that would have obscured potential evidence. By October 20th, the investigation had escalated to include additional personnel from both the Sheriff's Department and the National Forest Service. Lieutenant James Wong, who coordinated search and rescue operations for the region, established a command post at the Bent Creek facility and began organizing systematic search patterns covering the areas outlined in Michael's hiking itinerary. Wong's operational plan, as documented in official records, divided the potential search area into grid sections based on topographical maps and known trail networks. Teams were assigned to cover primary routes first, followed by secondary trails and unmarked paths that experienced hikers commonly use to access remote camping locations. We focused initially on the areas where Harrison had indicated he planned to camp, Wong explained to reporters from the Asheville Citizen-Times. Our assumption was that he had either encountered difficulties along his planned route or had decided to explore alternative areas. The first significant development occurred on October 22nd, when a 4-person search team led by Forest Service Ranger Patricia Hendricks discovered evidence of recent camping activity, approximately 3.8 miles from the trailhead. According to Hendricks' detailed report, the site was located approximately 200 yards off the main trail, in a clearing that showed clear signs of recent occupation, including a fire ring, compressed ground where a tent had been positioned, and disturbed vegetation consistent with human presence. Hendricks documented that the campsite appeared to have been used within the previous week, based on the condition of the fire ring and the lack of natural debris accumulation in the cleared areas. However, the team found no personal items, trash, or other evidence that could definitively link the site to Michael Harrison. The site was consistent with use by an experienced camper who followed leave-no-trace principles, Hendricks noted in her report. Whoever had camped there had been careful to remove all personal belongings and minimize environmental impact. Crime scene technician Robert Chen was dispatched to document the campsite and collect any potential evidence. Chen's report indicated that soil samples and photographs were taken, but no fingerprints, fabric samples, or other physical evidence were recovered from the immediate area. The site was photographed from multiple angles and marked with GPS coordinates for potential future reference. The discovery of the campsite prompted an expansion of the search operation to include additional volunteer groups and specialized personnel. According to media coverage in the Mountain Express, more than 80 volunteers joined professional search teams during the peak of the operation, which lasted from October 23rd through October 27th. Volunteers included members of local hiking clubs, retired Park Service personnel, and community members with relevant outdoor experience. Sarah Mitchell, a spokesperson for the Blue Ridge Search and Rescue Organization, coordinated volunteer efforts and provided regular updates to media outlets. According to Mitchell's statements to the press, volunteers were organized into teams of 4 to 6 people and assigned specific trail sections and geographic areas to cover systematically. "We had people who knew these mountains intimately," Mitchell told reporters. "Many of our volunteers had been hiking these same trails for decades and were familiar with areas that might not appear on standard maps." The search operation faced significant logistical challenges due to the remote and rugged nature of the terrain. Lieutenant Wong's operational reports documented difficulties including steep elevation changes, dense forest cover that limited visibility, and numerous creek crossings that required specialized equipment. Weather conditions during the search period were generally favorable, with temperatures ranging from 45 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit and only one day of light precipitation. Helicopter reconnaissance was conducted on October 24th and 25th, utilizing aircraft provided by the North Carolina National Guard. Pilot Major David Rodriguez documented flight patterns covering approximately 40 square miles of mountainous terrain, including areas that were inaccessible to ground search teams. According to Rodriguez's flight reports, aerial observers identified several potential points of interest, including what appeared to be camping equipment in remote locations, but subsequent ground team investigations determined that these sightings were false alarms involving natural formations or abandoned gear from previous hiking expeditions. The media attention surrounding Michael's disappearance intensified as the search operation continued without significant results. Jennifer Harrison Webb participated in several press conferences and interviews, providing additional details about her brother's background and appealing for any information from the public. "Michael is an experienced hiker who respects the mountains and follows safety protocols," she stated during a televised interview on WLOS-TV on October 25th. "He's been hiking these trails for 15 years and knows how to handle emergency situations. Something unexpected must have happened." Local television stations WLOS and WIFF provided daily coverage of the search efforts, broadcasting updates on the number of personnel involved and areas that had been searched. Print media, including the Asheville Citizen-Times and the Hendersonville Lightning, published detailed articles about Michael's background and the ongoing investigation. The coverage generated numerous tips and potential sightings, though none ultimately provided useful leads. The tip line established by the Sheriff's Department received more than 40 calls during the first week of media coverage. Deputy Martinez, who processed incoming tips, documented reports including claimed sightings of Michael at various locations throughout western North Carolina, suggestions about areas to search, and offers of assistance from additional volunteer groups. However, according to Martinez's summary report, none of the reported sightings could be substantiated upon investigation. One potentially significant tip came from a hiker named Mark Thompson, who contacted authorities on October 26th to report that he had encountered a solo male hiker on October 16th in an area approximately 6 miles from where Michael's truck was parked. According to Thompson's statement, the individual appeared to match Michael's general description and was carrying a large backpack and camping equipment. However, Thompson acknowledged that he had only seen the person from a distance and could not make a positive identification from photographs. Investigators followed up on Thompson's report by conducting additional searches in the area where the sighting allegedly occurred. A team led by Sergeant Park spent 2 days covering terrain in the vicinity of Thompson's reported encounter, but found no evidence of recent human activity or items that could be connected to Michael Harrison. As the search operation extended into its second week, challenges began to emerge regarding resource allocation and coordination. Lieutenant Wong's status reports indicated that maintaining the large-scale search effort was becoming increasingly difficult due to personnel limitations and budget constraints. "We had been operating at maximum capacity for 10 days, Wong later explained to county administrators. The terrain we were covering required specialized skills and equipment, and we were reaching the limits of what could be reasonably sustained. The decision to scale back the intensive search operation was made on October 28th, nearly 2 weeks after Michael's disappearance. According to Sheriff Department spokesperson Captain Rita Valdez, the decision was based on the extensive coverage that had already been completed and the lack of new leads or evidence that could guide continued efforts. We had covered virtually every trail, path, and potential camping area within a reasonable radius of Harrison's planned route, Valdez stated at a press conference. The search teams had been thorough and professional, but we had reached a point where continued intensive operations were unlikely to produce results. The scaled-back investigation continued with periodic searches when new information became available and regular patrols of the areas most likely to yield evidence. Park Ranger Bradley incorporated checks of Michael's planned route areas into his routine patrol schedule, and volunteer groups continued occasional organized searches on weekends through the remainder of 2002. Jennifer Harrison Webb maintained regular contact with investigators and continued her own efforts to locate her brother. According to her statements to local media, she visited the search area multiple times, distributed flyers with Michael's photograph and information throughout the region, and contacted hiking organizations and outdoor equipment retailers to request assistance in spreading awareness about the case. The case generated interest from hiking and outdoor recreation communities throughout the Southeast. Several hiking forums and websites published information about Michael's disappearance, and outdoor equipment retailers in multiple states displayed missing person flyers. The National Hiking Safety Organization included Michael's case in their newsletter, emphasizing the importance of emergency communication devices and detailed trip planning. As 2002 concluded, the investigation remained officially active, but had effectively transitioned to a cold case status. Lieutenant Wong's year-end report documented that more than 200 person-hours had been dedicated to ground searches, aerial reconnaissance had covered over 100 square miles, and investigators had followed up on dozens of tips and potential sightings. Despite these extensive efforts, no conclusive evidence regarding Michael Harrison's fate or location had been discovered. The case file remained open with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department, with instructions for deputies to report any relevant discoveries or information that might emerge during routine patrols or unrelated investigations. Michael's vehicle was released to his family in December 2002, after forensic examination revealed no useful evidence about his disappearance. Jennifer Harrison Webb continued to advocate for her brother's case, maintaining contact with media outlets and law enforcement agencies. She established a small reward fund for information leading to Michael's discovery and regularly updated missing person databases with current contact information. "I know Michael is still out there somewhere," she stated in a December 2002 interview with the Mountain Express. "Until we have definitive answers, I'm going to keep looking and keep hoping that someone will come forward with information." By early 2003, media coverage of Michael's disappearance had largely subsided, though the case occasionally appeared in articles about unsolved missing person cases in western North Carolina. The investigation remained technically active, but received minimal resources, with periodic reviews conducted when similar cases or relevant discoveries were reported in the region. The Michael Harrison case joined a growing list of unsolved disappearances in the Appalachian region, contributing to broader discussions about hiking safety and emergency preparedness in remote wilderness areas. Park Service officials used the case as an example in safety presentations, emphasizing the importance of emergency communication devices and detailed trip plans when undertaking solo hiking expeditions in challenging terrain. 10 years after Michael Harrison's disappearance, on September 8, 2012, a group of 4 tourists exploring caves in the Pisgah National Forest made a discovery that would reopen one of Western North Carolina's most puzzling missing person cases. The group, consisting of Mark Stevens, Rebecca Torres, James Kim, and Angela Martinez, had been conducting amateur cave exploration approximately 12 miles from where Michael's vehicle had been found a decade earlier. According to the incident report filed by Buncombe County Deputy Michael Rodriguez, the tourists were using handheld radio equipment to maintain communication between team members when they began receiving an intermittent signal on an emergency frequency. Stevens, who had experience with radio communications from his background in amateur radio operation, immediately recognized that the signal pattern was unusual and potentially significant. "We were about 200 feet inside the cave system when Rebecca's radio started picking up this weird transmission," Stevens stated in his formal testimony to investigators. "It wasn't like normal radio chatter or interference. The signal was very weak but had a pattern to it, almost like someone was trying to transmit in short bursts. At first, we thought it might be equipment malfunction, but when we moved to different locations in the cave, the signal strength changed." Torres, who documented the group's cave exploration activities with photographs and GPS coordinates, confirmed that the signal was strongest near a section of the cave system that extended deeper into the mountain. According to her statement, the group spent approximately 30 minutes attempting to trace the source of the transmission before deciding to report their discovery to authorities. The tourists contacted the Buncombe County Sheriff's Department emergency line at 4:17 p.m. on September 8th. Emergency dispatcher Carol Williams took the initial call and documented that Stevens reported receiving unusual radio transmissions from inside a cave system and requested that someone investigate the situation. Williams's log indicates that she initially classified the call as a non-emergency situation, but forwarded the information to Deputy Rodriguez for follow-up. Deputy Rodriguez responded to the scene at approximately 6:30 p.m., accompanied by Forest Service Ranger David Chen. According to Rodriguez's incident report, the tourists provided detailed information about the location where they had detected the radio signals and offered to guide the officers to the specific area within the cave system. The reporting parties appeared credible and genuinely concerned about what they had discovered, Rodriguez documented. They had GPS coordinates and photographs of the cave entrance and seemed knowledgeable about radio equipment. The initial investigation conducted by Rodriguez and Chen involved a preliminary examination of the cave entrance and surrounding area. Chen's report noted that the cave system was not well known to casual hikers and was located in a section of the forest that received minimal foot traffic. Access to the cave required hiking approximately 2 miles from the nearest established trail, through terrain that would be challenging for inexperienced hikers. The location was definitely off the beaten path, Chen explained in his written report. Most hikers stick to marked trails, and this cave isn't mentioned in any of the standard guidebooks or maps that casual visitors use. Someone would have to be deliberately exploring, or have specific knowledge of the area, to find this particular cave system. Due to safety concerns about entering the cave system without proper equipment and specialized personnel, Rodriguez and Chen decided to secure the area and request assistance from the Sheriff's Department's Search and Rescue Unit. The cave entrance was marked with temporary barriers, and arrangements were made to return the following day with appropriate gear and experienced cave rescue specialists. On September 9th, a team consisting of Sergeant Lisa Park, cave rescue specialist Thomas Bradley, and electronics technician Robert Chen entered the cave system to investigate the reported radio transmissions. According to their joint report, the team detected intermittent signals on emergency frequencies at multiple locations within the cave, with the strongest transmissions occurring approximately 300 feet from the main entrance. Bradley, who had extensive experience in cave rescue operations, noted that the cave system extended much deeper into the mountain than initial surveys had indicated. "We were dealing with a complex network of passages and chambers," Bradley documented. "The radio signals seemed to be coming from somewhere deeper in the system, possibly from areas that would require technical climbing equipment to access safely." Electronics technician Chen conducted detailed analysis of the radio transmissions using specialized detection equipment. His technical report indicated that the signals appeared to be generated by a low-power emergency transmitter, possibly from a personal locator beacon or similar device. The transmission pattern was consistent with emergency equipment that might be operating on backup power or damaged battery systems, Chen explained. The intermittent nature of the signals suggested equipment that was either malfunctioning or operating under severe power limitations. The discovery of radio transmissions in a remote cave system prompted investigators to review cold case files for missing persons who might have been carrying emergency communication equipment. Sergeant Park, who had been involved in the original Michael Harrison investigation, immediately recognized the potential connection between the current discovery and the decade-old missing person case. "When I heard about radio transmissions coming from a cave system in that area, Michael Harrison was the first case that came to mind," Park later explained to investigators. "The location was within a reasonable distance of where he had been hiking, and we knew from his sister's statements that he carried emergency equipment on his outdoor trips." On September 11th, Park retrieved the Michael Harrison case file from the Cold Case Division and began reviewing the original investigation documents. The file review revealed that Michael's standard hiking equipment, as described by his sister Jennifer Harrison Webb, included an emergency radio beacon that he routinely carried on solo hiking expeditions. Jennifer was contacted by investigators on September 12th and asked to provide additional details about the emergency equipment her brother typically carried. According to her updated statement, Michael owned a personal locator beacon manufactured by ACR Electronics, which he had purchased in 2001, specifically for use during solo hiking trips. "He showed me how it worked when he first bought it," Jennifer told investigators. "He said it would transmit a distress signal if he ever got into serious trouble and couldn't get help any other way." The potential connection between the cave radio transmissions and Michael Harrison's missing emergency equipment provided the first significant lead in the case since 2002. Lieutenant James Wong, who had coordinated the original search operation, was briefed on the new developments and authorized an expanded investigation of the cave system. A comprehensive cave exploration operation was organized for September 15th, involving specialist personnel from the North Carolina Cave Rescue Team, electronics experts from the State Bureau of Investigation, and experienced search and rescue coordinators. The operation was designed to systematically explore the cave system and locate the source of the radio transmissions. Cave rescue specialist, Dr. Patricia Hendricks, led the technical exploration team into the deeper sections of the cave system. According to Hendricks' detailed report, the team discovered that the cave network extended over 200 feet into the mountain and included several large chambers connected by narrow passages that would be difficult for an injured or inexperienced person to navigate. The radio signals were ultimately traced to a location approximately 800 feet from the main cave entrance, in a chamber that required technical rope work to access safely. According to the team's documentation, this section of the cave would be extremely difficult to reach for someone without specialized climbing equipment and cave exploration experience. Electronics specialist Maria Santos, who accompanied the cave exploration team, confirmed that the radio transmissions were indeed coming from emergency locator equipment. Santos's technical analysis indicated that the device was still functional, but operating at severely reduced power levels, consistent with equipment that had been transmitting intermittently for an extended period. The signal characteristics suggested that this equipment had been active for a very long time, Santos explained in her report. Emergency locator beacons are designed to operate for 24 to 48 hours under normal conditions, but if they're damaged or operating in intermittent mode, they might continue transmitting weak signals for much longer periods. The discovery that working emergency equipment was located deep within a remote cave system raised immediate questions about how the device had reached that location and whether it was connected to Michael Harrison's disappearance. The technical challenges involved in accessing the signal source suggested that reaching the equipment would require specialized personnel and careful planning. Meanwhile, media outlets that had covered the original Michael Harrison case began reporting on the new developments. The Asheville Citizen-Times published an article on September 16th detailing the discovery of radio transmissions and the potential connection to the decade-old missing person case. Local television stations WLOS and WIFF also covered the story, interviewing Jennifer Harrison Webb about her reactions to the new investigation. After 10 years of not knowing what happened to Michael, this is the first real hope we've had, Jennifer stated in a televised interview. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the fact that emergency equipment might have been found in that area gives us something concrete to investigate. We've waited this long for answers, and maybe we're finally going to get some. The renewed media attention generated additional tips and information from members of the public who had been in the area during the time period surrounding Michael's disappearance. The Sheriff's Department established a dedicated tip line and assigned additional personnel to process incoming calls and investigate potential leads. One significant tip came from retired park ranger William Foster, who contacted investigators on September 18th with information about cave systems in the region. According to Foster's statement, he had conducted unofficial surveys of cave networks in the Pisgah National Forest during the 1990s and was familiar with the cave system where the radio signals had been discovered. That particular cave was always considered dangerous because of the technical climbing required to explore the deeper sections. Foster explained to investigators, "It's not the kind of place where a typical hiker would end up accidentally. Someone would have to be deliberately exploring caves, or be forced into that situation by unusual circumstances." Foster's information added another layer of complexity to the investigation, as it suggested that reaching the location where the emergency equipment was found would require either specialized cave exploration skills or extraordinary circumstances that might have forced someone to seek shelter in the cave system. As September 2012 concluded, the Michael Harrison case had been officially reopened with expanded resources and renewed urgency. The discovery of functioning emergency equipment in a remote cave system provided the first tangible evidence related to the case in over a decade, but also raised new questions about the circumstances that might have led to the equipment's placement in such an inaccessible location. Investigators prepared for a comprehensive operation to recover the emergency device and conduct detailed examination of the cave system where it was located, with the hope that additional evidence might finally provide answers about Michael Harrison's fate and the events that had occurred during his final hiking expedition 10 years earlier. The comprehensive cave recovery operation began on September 22, 2012, when a specialized team led by North Carolina Cave Rescue Coordinator Dr. Patricia Hendricks descended into the deepest accessible sections of the cave system. According to official documentation, the team included electronics specialist Maria Santos, crime scene technician Robert Chen, and medical examiner Dr. David Rodriguez, all equipped with specialized gear necessary for technical cave exploration. The recovery of the emergency locator beacon occurred at approximately 11:30 a.m., when the team reached the chamber where radio transmissions had been traced. According to Dr. Hendricks's detailed report, the device was found wedged between rock formations, in a location that would have been extremely difficult to access without technical climbing equipment and extensive cave exploration experience. Electronics specialist Santos documented that the emergency beacon was an ACR Electronics Rescue Link model, matching the description provided by Jennifer Harrison Webb of the device her brother routinely carried during hiking expeditions. Serial number verification conducted by the manufacturer confirmed that the device had been registered to Michael Harrison in March 2001, providing the first definitive physical evidence connecting the decade-old missing person case to the cave system. The beacon was severely damaged but still functioning intermittently, Santos reported. The housing showed extensive impact damage consistent with falls or impacts against rock surfaces, and the antenna had been partially severed. Despite this damage, the internal electronics continued to generate weak emergency transmissions, which explained the intermittent signal pattern detected by the tourists. Crime scene technician Chen conducted detailed documentation of the immediate area where the beacon was discovered. According to Chen's photographic evidence and measurements, the device was located in a narrow crevice approximately 15 feet below the main chamber floor, accessible only through a vertical descent requiring specialized rope techniques. During the systematic examination of the chamber, the recovery team made additional discoveries that significantly expanded the scope of the investigation. Dr. Rodriguez documented the presence of fabric fragments, metal components consistent with camping equipment, and other materials that appeared to have been in the cave environment for an extended period. We found remnants of what appeared to be outdoor gear distributed throughout the chamber, Rodriguez reported. The materials included pieces of nylon fabric consistent with camping equipment, metal buckles and fasteners, and fragments of what might have been food packaging. The distribution pattern suggested these items had been present in the cave for several years. The most significant discovery occurred when the team located a partially collapsed section of the chamber where additional evidence was found beneath loose rock debris. According to Dr. Hendrick's documentation, careful excavation of this area revealed more substantial remnants of hiking equipment, including portions of a backpack frame and what appeared to be camping gear components. The evidence suggested that someone had been present in this chamber for an extended period, Hendricks documented. We found clear indications of human habitation, including areas where someone had attempted to create sheltered spaces and evidence of long-term survival efforts. The physical evidence painted a picture of someone who had been trapped or stranded in this environment. Medical examiner Rodriguez conducted analysis of the cave environment and the evidence of human presence. His preliminary assessment indicated that the chamber could potentially provide shelter from weather conditions, but would present severe challenges for long-term survival due to limited access to food, water, and the extreme difficulty of exit without specialized equipment. The chamber showed clear evidence that someone had been living there, possibly for weeks or months, Rodriguez explained in his initial report. We found indications of fire-building attempts, food storage efforts, and what appeared to be makeshift bedding areas. However, the environment would have been extremely hostile for extended survival. The discovery of evidence indicating long-term human presence in the cave chamber prompted investigators to conduct expanded searches of other accessible areas within the cave system. Additional teams were deployed to examine connecting passages and chambers that might contain further evidence or provide additional information about the circumstances that had led to someone taking shelter in such an inaccessible location. On September 25th, search teams made a discovery that provided crucial information about the timeline of events. In a chamber adjacent to where the emergency beacon was found, investigators located a damaged wristwatch that had stopped functioning on October 31st, 2002, 16 days after Michael Harrison had been reported missing. The wristwatch, identified as a Timex model consistent with outdoor recreation use, was found among other personal items, including a damaged compass and fragments of a topographical map. According to forensic analysis conducted by the State Bureau of Investigation, these items had been exposed to the cave environment for approximately 10 years, consistent with the timeline of Michael Harrison's disappearance. Crime scene technician Chen's analysis of the map fragments revealed that they corresponded to the Pisgah National Forest area where Michael had been hiking. The compass, though damaged by moisture and time, was identified as a model commonly used by experienced hikers for navigation in challenging terrain. The evidence created a timeline that was consistent with someone entering the cave system shortly after October 15, 2002, and remaining there for at least 2 weeks, Chen documented. The stopped watch suggested that the individual had been present in the cave until at least October 31st, possibly longer. The accumulating evidence painted a picture of someone who had become trapped or stranded in the cave system and had survived there for an extended period before ultimately succumbing to the harsh conditions. However, despite extensive searches of accessible areas within the cave system, investigators did not locate human remains or additional evidence that could provide definitive answers about Michael Harrison's ultimate fate. Dr. Rodriguez's analysis of the survival evidence found throughout the chamber indicated sophisticated efforts to adapt to the cave environment. We found evidence of water collection systems, attempts to preserve food supplies, and efforts to create insulated sleeping areas, Rodriguez documented. This person had significant outdoor survival knowledge and had made considerable efforts to survive in extremely challenging conditions. The investigation revealed that the cave system included water sources that could have supported short-term survival, but the complete isolation and extreme difficulty of exit would have created insurmountable challenges for long-term survival. The technical climbing skills required to reach the cave entrance from the interior chambers would have been beyond the capabilities of most hikers, even those with extensive outdoor experience. Jennifer Harrison Webb was briefed on the investigation findings on September 28, 2012. According to the documentation of that meeting, she was shown photographs of the recovered emergency beacon and personal items, which she positively identified as belonging to her brother. Seeing Michael's emergency beacon and his compass was overwhelming, Jennifer stated in her formal response to investigators. After 10 years of not knowing, we finally have evidence of what happened to him. It's not the outcome we hoped for, but at least we have some answers about where he was and what he went through. The case findings were presented to the media during a press conference on October 1, 2012. Sheriff Department spokesperson Captain Rita Valdez explained that while definitive conclusions about Michael Harrison's fate could not be reached without additional evidence, the investigation had provided substantial information about the circumstances of his disappearance. Based on the evidence recovered from the cave system, we believe that Michael Harrison became lost or injured during his hiking expedition and sought shelter in the cave, Valdez stated. The physical evidence indicates that he survived in that environment for several weeks and made extraordinary efforts to sustain himself under incredibly difficult conditions. The investigation findings generated renewed media attention and public interest in hiking safety and emergency preparedness. The National Park Service incorporated Michael Harrison's case into educational materials about wilderness safety, emphasizing the importance of emergency communication devices and the risks associated with solo hiking in remote areas. Cave rescue organizations use the case to highlight the dangers of entering unfamiliar cave systems without proper training and equipment. Dr. Hendricks presented the investigation findings at the National Cave Rescue Commission Conference, where it was recognized as an important case study in cave emergency response and survival. The Michael Harrison case file was officially closed on October 15, 2012, exactly 10 years after his disappearance. While investigators were unable to locate additional evidence that would provide complete answers about his ultimate fate, the extensive physical evidence recovered from the cave system provided substantial information about his survival efforts and the challenging circumstances he faced. Jennifer Harrison Webb established a memorial fund in her brother's memory to support wilderness safety education and cave rescue training programs. Michael would want his experience to help other people stay safe in the mountains, she stated during the fund announcement. If sharing his story can prevent other families from going through what we've experienced, then something positive can come from this tragedy. The cave system where Michael's emergency equipment was discovered was subsequently mapped and documented by cave survey organizations. Access to the deeper chambers was restricted due to the technical challenges and safety risks demonstrated by the investigation, with warning signs posted at the cave entrance to alert potential explorers about the dangers. The case contributed to broader discussions about solo hiking safety and the importance of detailed trip planning when undertaking expeditions in remote wilderness areas. Park Service officials noted that Michael's case demonstrated both the value of emergency equipment and the limitations of technology in extreme survival situations. Dr. Rodriguez's final report concluded that the evidence supported a finding that Michael Harrison had demonstrated remarkable survival skills and determination during his time in the cave system. The physical evidence shows someone who fought to survive under conditions that would have defeated most people, Rodriguez documented. While we cannot determine the ultimate outcome, we can say with certainty that Michael Harrison showed extraordinary courage and resourcefulness in the face of impossible circumstances. The investigation formally concluded on November 1, 2012, with all recovered evidence cataloged and preserved. The case remains one of the most extensively documented missing person investigations in North Carolina history and continues to serve as an important resource for wilderness safety education and cave rescue training programs throughout the region.